Hi loves, you're welcome to my channel, and today I'm going to share with you how to cut and sew a palazzo trouser. So if this is something you are interested in, then please keep on watching. I'm using a waist of 28, a hip of 39, and a lap or a thigh of 26 inches. Okay, so I'm going to fold the fabric or the material with the widest part of the measurements. So looking at all the measurements, the widest part is 26 because we are going to divide the hip by 4, but the thigh, the knee, the ankle by 2 inches. So dividing 26 by 2 is 13. Alright, but dividing the hip, which is 39, by 4 is less than 13, so we are going to use 13 inches. Always the thigh is mostly wider, so you use your thigh measurement to fold the material. Okay, so here I have more than 13 and 13, and the reason is that I'll be drawing a starting line from here, so I'll go ahead and do that. I'm going to start marking a starting line from this side. Okay, so I'm going to mark 1 inch. And this is the starting line. I'm going to start from here, and from here as well I'm going to do a starting line. I'm just going to make sure I draw a straight line, a very straight line, to serve as a starting line. So here we begin our measurements from here and here. These are going to serve as guidelines. Okay, so from the starting line here, we are going to measure the length of the trouser. I'm going to use the length of 37. Okay, but I'll deduct 1.5, and that 1.5 is going to serve as the band. Okay, so since I'm going to add a band, I would have to reduce or deduct that band length from the full length of the trouser. So mine is 1.5, so we are going to deduct 1.5 from 37. That will be 35.5. Now, even though this is a band, we are going to need half inch to join, half inch from here. I hope you are getting me. We are going to use half inch from the waistline to join to the band, so we need half an inch. Okay, so since we need half an inch, instead of using 1.5, instead of deducting 1.5, I'm going to deduct 1 inch, so that the half inch will serve as the joining allowance, that is to join the band to the waist of the trouser. Okay, so since we deduct 1 inch, then we will have 36 inches in all. Okay, so from here, that means all measurement to start from the 1 inch, not 1.5. Okay, so I'm going to start from here like this. Can you see? From the 1 inch. And I'm going to draw down my trouser length. We are working with 36, right? And I'm going to add 1.5 inch for allowance. That's hemming allowance. I'm going to mark this throughout. 36, 37.5. The next thing is to insert the crouch depth, and to get a crouch depth, you divide your hip by 4. So now my hip is 39 divided by 4, so I'll have 9.75. Okay, so because it is a high waist, I have 9.75. Because it is a high waist, I'm going to add 1.5 to that 9.75. So I have in all 11.25. Okay, so I added 1.5 to the quarter of the hip. That's to get a crouch. I added 1.5 because it's a high waist. If you are making a normal palazzo trouser, you just have to maintain that measurement. Okay, we are working with 11.25. So same thing. I'm going to start the measurement from the 1 inch, and I'll mark the 11.25. So now to get a hip line, we'll go up by 2.5 from the crouch depth. So this is the crouch depth and this is the hip line. So from the starting line here, we will mark our thigh measurement. So we'll divide our thigh by 2. I'm working with a thigh of 26, so divided by 2 will be 13. I'm going to mark it. On the hip line, we insert the hip measurement, that's quarter of the hip. So quarter of my hip is 9.75. So the same measurement I get on the hip, I'm going to mark it on the waist, and then I'll connect the line straight. I'll mark the same thing here. We'll go in from here by 1 inch, and we'll connect this way. I'm sorry about this. The surface of the material is kind of rough, so yeah. So now on the waistline here, we will insert the waist measurement. So quarter of the waist I'm working with will be 7. So we start the measurement from this line. So we are going to measure 7 inches. So I don't have a hip curve. The best thing is to use a hip curve. So I'm going to manipulate this armhole curve to make the hip curve. Okay. So now in case you want to add that to this measurement, all you have to do is add 1 inch and connect to the hip. But I'm not going to do that, so I'll keep it this way. At the waist here, I'm going to come down by just 1 inch. Come down by 1 inch and connect to the waistline. So now we'll pick up our thigh and divide it into 2. And whatever measurement we have here, we are going to mark that same measurement down to the hemline. Okay, so just mark it this way. I have 6.5, so I'm going to mark it 6.5. Then I'll take it straight. This will serve as the grain line. So with this method, you can make a fitted trouser. All you have to do is to insert your knee measurement and your ankle measurement and connect them together. Okay, I'm going to insert my waist to knee, which I was supposed to do first. So again, from the 1 inch, my knee is 21. This is a palazzo trouser. I really don't want the whole place to be very big, so I'm going to use 21 as the knee. It's going to be big, but it's not fitted. Okay, so I'm going to divide this into two. Now because this place is also divided into two, you divide this place as well into two. Then you place the midpoint on the green line like this. Mark here and mark here. So whatever you have here, you measure it at the lower part. If you want the palazzo, it is easy. Since this is where my tie stops, it's just going to take it this way, and then you cut from here. Okay, I'm going to connect from here to the tie, not the hip but the tie. I'm going to go ahead and cut it out, but make sure whilst cutting you don't cut here. We use the front to cut the back, so we'll do that before we take off this part. Okay, so I'm going to pick this side like this and notch. It's good to always notch. I'll notch the knee line. Don't notch too much because I just did. Don't notch too much, just something for you to see. Okay, so that way when you're joining you know where is where. If that makes sense. We are now going to cut the back. So what I'm going to do now is to mark the lines. So here I'm going to mark 2.5 here on this line. That's a crotch line. 2.5. Then from the knee downwards will be 2 inches. You know, on the front we use our exact measurements, okay, but we still need the allowance, right? So that is why we need 2 inches for sewing allowance. But the crotch area, it is advisable to mark more than that so that you'll be safe, because that is where the butt is, okay, or the ass. So I'm going to mark here 2 inches, 2. From this line here, that's the waistline, I'm going to mark in 3 inches like this. And as a guideline, I'll connect here to here. Just a guideline, okay. So I'm not making it too deep. Then on that line this way, I'm going to go in by just 1.5. Okay, you can do 2 inches or even more. I'm going to connect that to here like this. So now you now connect from here like this. Just connect it this way. That's why the line here as a guideline is good. Okay, so now we are going to cross check whether our hip is intact. So here my hip is 9.75. that will be times 2. That's times 2 because the back is now different from the front. So that's 9.75 times 2. I have 19.5. The back is 13.5. So that's 26 plus 26. I have 45.5. So now for me to know whether I'm on course or whether the trouser will fit me, I'm going to deduct hip measurement, that is the 39 inches, from 45 and half, because the 45 was gotten from measuring here times 2, that's the front, and measuring the back times 2 differently. Then you add them together. Whatever measurement you get, you subtract your hip from that measurement. Okay, have 6.5. 6.5 is accurate and you are on course, it's exact. If you have less than 6.5, then you have a problem. So what you are going to do is just go this way. Okay, so that you'll be able to make up for the shortage. Okay, so here is no part because I have 6.5. You should have 6.5 and more than 6.5, not less than 6.5. So take note of that. So that is it. Just connect this way and we are done. I'll go ahead and cut out. So I'll go ahead and notch. I'll go ahead and knit in all the parts, then we'll continue from there. So I'll go ahead and pin the side. I've picked each front and back together. So I'm going to pin them and I'll stitch each side. This is the side. This is the crotch area for both the front and the back. So I'll go ahead and do that. So I've pinned them. This is the front and this is the back. This is the side as well as this place. Okay, so I just pinned it in place so that it will be easier to work with. So quarter of my waist is 7, so I'm going to start marking from here, the seam line here. I'm going to mark it this way. So I'm going to mark that 7 and I have something small to stitch, so I'll go ahead and do that. I'll go ahead and mark it this way. And then from here as well, I'm going to mark 7 inches from here. So measuring all of them together should give you 14 inches. This is where the 14 inches stops. So I'm just going to, since there is a little space here, the knitting has taken a little space off. So I'm going to start this way and then I'll make it up to here. So this is where the 14 ends. Okay, you can as well just mark ½ inch from here and then you measure from here to the back, because the front does not need much allowance. So just mark ½ inch instead of measuring quarter of your waist here, quarter of your waist here. You can as well just measure ½ inch here, because that's how you stitch the front. From that ½ inch, then you go ahead and measure half of your waist towards the back and then you mark. If the back has allowance, it's okay, it's better than the front. So now one thing you should take note is the lower part here should be ½ inch. When you stitch it, it should be ½ inch. You can either mark or leave it. So make sure you mark this way The only difference is this place, the allowance here is big, which is no problem. So what I'm going to do is to just mark. Don't do too much. So make sure you mark till you get to that ½ inch. I'm marking more than that, so I'll remark so that I get to the ½ inch. I'm going to stitch ½ inch like this, then you get here. Okay, so for the zipper, you can either decide the zip to be at the back or the side. So what I did was I want it to be at the side. So while stitching one side, I measured where I want the zip to stop, and I back stitched here before I continued, and I didn't enforce the end because I'll be removing one side, just one side, and on the other side I stitched throughout. Okay, if you want zipper at the back, you can as well stitch. You make sure you know where your zipper stops, then after stitching you iron to have a crease line, then you'll be able to attach your zipper very well. Okay, so it's the same thing I did here. So I'll go ahead and stitch ½ inch like this to this place. This is it. You stitch, then afterwards you open up. After stitching, you open it up. You see, then you go ahead and sew the inner part with just ½ inch because this is a palazzo. You don't really need to measure, but you can still measure to make sure you are on course. Your thigh measurement especially is aligning. I have mine correctly. So after joining the center back and the center front, you go ahead and join the lower part with just ½ inch. I'll go ahead and do all of that, then we'll move to the waistband. So this is how our trouser is looking so far. So the next thing now is to create a band. I've ironed and interfacing on the material, and you need to measure your waist, your round waist. That's on the trouser. So you need to take note of your round waist. You can't use your exact round waist here while cutting the band. You should measure around your waist, or you should measure around the waist of the trouser instead. Then later you fix the zip and it will be fitted. Okay, so I'll measure around. So I have exactly 30. I'm going to add about 1 inch to that, so that's 31. So I'm going to fold it this way, having the folded part here, and I'll use a band of 1.5. That's what we started working with. So, and I'll add ½ inch for joining allowance. So that will be 2 inches. I'll mark from the folded point 2 inches. I'm going to take it this way and measure 31. So this is my 31. So here again I'll mark the 2 inches. This is it. I'm going to iron in ½ inch like this. I've ironed in the ½ inch. So I'm going to start the band from one point to the other. Okay, so right sides facing each other. I'll leave about ½ inch. That's the ½ inch we added as allowance. So here, to be here this way, I'm just going to follow the waistline. So we are going to take it this way to the edge, and afterwards I'm going to take it this way. I'll fold in the 1/2 inch allowance both sides like this and knitting it by stitching like this so that the edge will be knitted. I'll repeat the same thing here and then we'll continue from there. Okay, I'll go ahead and turn it inside out like this. Okay, so now the raw side, or yeah, the raw side of the waist will be inside. You get, so it will be this way, and it is well knitting. So pick it this way and you stitch on it from the right side. That's right side facing each other. You can do it the other way around by right side facing the wrong side and turning it to the right side and stitching on the right side. It will all give you the same outcome. Okay, so instead of doing this here, you rather do it in front. That's the right side of the trouser. So after doing this, I'll go ahead and attach the zipper and we are done. Low-key, I'm not joking. I hope you've learned something from this video, and if you did, please like, share, don't forget to subscribe. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.